Uh, Tonight, I actually worked on creating a custom door and an elevator. These are both basic variations that I will eventually end up either tinkering a little bit more with the scripting to make it a little more seamless, and after that, I'll end up making custom doors that are based off of these as their starters, which in people who know coding or have coding experience, this would be known as inheritance. Uh, But what I've done is that I have two objects that are literally the same Blender file as an elevator. So I've done some coding. I'll add this in post, and when you interact with the button, it goes up. When you interact with it again, it'll go down. And so we'll open it up. It will go back up. And then inside this room, I have a automatic elevator. As like I'm testing stuff, this is the first thing I worked on. What it does is it goes up and down, obviously, as you can tell. After it's done with that, it just keeps going. This is a continuous scripted game, and if we go on it, it goes up as you would expect an elevator to do. And yeah, that's about it. So yeah, it's an elevator. Uh, I will say I was surprised about how much work I had to do for it. Compared to Halo 3, it's a little more work, but then again, it is an older game, so it kind of makes sense. And just to demonstrate again, if we push the button, it'll go back down. I do eventually want to make a trigger volume for the door, so when you interact with it, if you leave its trigger volume for too long, it'll automatically close and reset the button. But yeah, that's about it for the in-game section. This is just the elevator and a door that's operatable via Halo script. Okay, so after showing y'all the in-game section of this short video, I kind of want to go over the script I had to use to make this work. Like I just mentioned, I was a little bit surprised about the amount of work I had to do. But hey, I'm learning stuff. That's great. Um, so for those who are new to coding or don't have much experience in it, the Halo script is a little bit weird and a little bit different than your average like C++ or C sharp, C, whatever your program is, Java, right? Uh, it's similar, but it's also like a little bit odder. Um, the two functions I'm using here are an elevator script and a door and button script. The elevator script is very self explanatory. It has a continuous function that just runs each of these things, so lines 3 through 6, and then repeats itself. So it sets the position of the elevator object, which is named elevator object in the Sapien application, and it sets to 1, which means I believe it's open, would be open in that case. Uh, and then it sleeps, which you can use as function. And if I recall correctly, this means that it's sleeping for 30 ticks for 3 times. So this is about 30 ticks is about 1 second. So this equates to about 3 seconds to waiting. And then it does the same thing, except it'll reset itself back to 0. So back to its closed state, I believe is what it would be. And then it does a sleep again, right, for 3 seconds, and then repeats this whole function again. So this will be continuous for the entire time. I might want to look into making a trigger zone maybe that runs so I have less code running 24/7, but for now, it works. If it becomes a problem, we'll deal with it later. The door script and the button script, right, they act similar to this same script. It's a continuous script with a function name, door loop, and it has a different way to stop or continue itself, right? Which is a sleep until parameter. Uh, it basically will not execute this code until a certain condition is met, right? Um, and what the condition I'm using to meet is waiting for this button to be interacted with, right? When it is interacted with it, it's now set to 1 and will run this code. So then this is checking to see if it's if it's opened or closed. If it is closed, so it's at 0, right? Then it'll set the position to 1, which means it'll open real quick, and then it'll reset the button to 0, which means it's now going to sleep again. Once it is interacted again with, it'll do the same thing, right? It'll check it, and at this point, it'll be at 1. It'll be open, so it'll begin a set of code and set it back to 0 for the position, and then set the position of the button to 0 again. So, in gist, the main things I had to learn were the device set position. This is used to set like if it's on or off, I believe. I'm not sure if that's actually its device set power. I'd have to go look at all the code and all that such. But this did work, so I'm assuming this is the case because it was working. And then if statements are very similar, they're a little bit different than like typical C++ formatting, but it is similar. But besides that, this is the code. It basically just runs a continuous function for both of these two objects. If I do want to make multiple objects, I'm going to need to look into maybe finding a way to automatically do all these, right? Because at the moment, I have to do a code and a script for each object, which will eventually take up a lot of scripting, and I'm not looking forward to that. And there's got to be a way to make this a little bit simpler. But at the moment, it works. I'll deal with the problems later on when it happens. The next thing I'm going to go ahead and show you all is kind of just a quick tutorial on how to set up a custom object or device in Maschine. So yeah, here we go. Okay, so the next section we're doing right here is a quick tutorial on how to create a custom elevator or door, right? As I mentioned at the beginning of the video, all I really did was just make an elevator in Blender, right? It's just a block that moves up and down. And I've used this for the door and the elevator. And I will eventually make custom variations that will do the same exact thing, except maybe be a little bit different. So how this works is you're going to make sure you have the Halo mod tools installed for Blender. I don't remember exactly what it's called, but there are plenty of resources for this online. Just look it up. You'll be able to find it pretty easily. I hope. I was able to do it. You should be fine. When you have all that installed, you're going to go to Import. Then you're going to go to Halo Tag, and you're going to import said GBX model animations, and collision geometry. The file path I've used it at is you can see here, right? It is the A10 devices elevator. This is the first level of Halo, and there was apparently an elevator in it, and I've used that as a reference. When you're creating objects, and if you're able to, I highly recommend to reference something that is in game before trying to create your own variation. And if you can do that, then creating a custom object will be a lot easier, because you're able to just simply reference back and forth with something that is working in game and you know will work, and then you can test your stuff to just make sure it works in line with it, right? Once you've gone ahead and imported it, you won't have this block. The A10 elevator is huge and it goes extremely high. What you want to do is you'll create your own object, right? You'll push Shift A, which isn't working because I'm in pose mode. You'll Shift A and create whatever object you want, and whatever you want to do, right? I did a cube, and it'll be called cube, right? Whatever your object name is. The most important thing is you need to select that object, and then control, I believe I parented to the bone, and then you'll go over here, push Control P, and set parent to bone. You'll do the same thing. I recommend just copy pasting your collision and name it this. It's at unnamed base frame elevator. This is just the same name that the one I was referencing. So to avoid any trouble and having to test too much, I just named it the exact same thing because it worked. After you've done that, the only thing you need to do is adjust your animation. If you haven't done Blender animation, luckily elevators are really simple to do because it's just 4 frames. How this works is you want to select your bone, go into pose mode, and most of the elevators I've seen in the levels have 4 frames. They have the first two are the I believe it's the closed state where it's on the bottom, so it's not anywhere right. And then the third is the halfway point, and then the fourth keyframe is the the open or whatever, the close or whatever. I believe this would be the open state. So your start will be 1 and 2, your middle point will be 3, and your ending point will be 4. To change this around, grab your frame elevator bone. You can push dot on the keyboard or dot delete right on the numpad, and that'll bring you so you know where your bone is, and you can simply just move it around, right? I just did Control Z, which moves it up and down only. And then when you're satisfied with the location of a frame where you want to create a frame, just simply push I and push available. This will save everything to that frame and every bone that's selected to this section right here, because I'm at 4 right now. Once you are satisfied with your what frames are, what you're doing there, right? You're gonna go. You need to export it, right? So you're gonna export it as a JMS and a JMA. The JMA is the animation stuff, right? The model animation, and the JMS will be your render files and your collision stuff. So for JMS, you'll go export it in your respective data folder. This is similar to every single other Halo game. I recommend unchecking non-render, and then you'll do a render geometry. The things that are important is that you need to have, for those who have not really done much modding, it's very similar to every other game. You have to have an animation file, which will have your animation file in it, your models file, and your physics file. So we're going to put the elevator in here, and it'll be a JMS. Then after that, you're going to go export. It's a JMS. We'll go to the physics folder, and you're going to select collision geometry instead. And if the name is like this, right, it should work properly. I named it elevator collision just to ensure that the game recognizes it as well. You'll export it, and then the last one we have to do is we have to export the JMA. I did a little bit of testing. Apparently, it has to be a .jmo. I don't really know why. I gotta select this. Wait, why is it? Export JMO. There you go. So, it has to be a JMO for, I guess, objects, I think. The other two didn't work. The main ones you'll see on characters are JMM, and sometimes JMO, I think. But for this, the elevator work, I had to use a JMO. So just use that. After you've done all your Blender process, I recommend using a software known as Soyos. So let me open that up real quick. Alright. So Soyos, if you haven't used it, there are sources online. You can find it and install it and set up your file back. It's an assortment of code that runs your command stuff and your tools a lot easier. You want to go to import model, and you're going to find that browser path, right, that you have, and put it to the root file of that, and then import your GBX model, your collision, and animations. Just import the model, and as long as you have no issues, it should just run. After you're done with that, you want to go to Gorilla. And what I recommend to do is just, like I've said with referencing stuff, just copy the same one you're referencing. And if you need to change the name, change the name. Right. I didn't change the name for this variation, but like it doesn't matter because it's in a different folder path, so it's fine. The things you need to change is your model, your animation graph, and the collision model. These are like the important things. Put these as your updated stuff, your custom files that should have worked and updated. Uh, let's see what else is there. I believe for elevators, you need to have elevator selected because it's an elevator. But besides that, door I had to have a pathfinding obstacle on. I just referenced it. Um, yeah, that's about it there. The other thing you have to do is you do need to make sure you update your model animations, otherwise your animation won't do anything. Uh, the reason why the position is important is because that is the thing that is running that checks this. So when you go in here, you need to add a device for animations. So you should have to, if it's not already there, you got to add it. And then same for animations, add something, and then you should have device position added in here. And I believe that's also what the code is referencing, I think. But that's needed. The other thing you need to do is make sure your bone is named whatever it is. I think it matters. I'm not too sure. And then your animation should show up here. Once you've done that, the only other thing I can think of is the only other thing I can think of is the name of the texture. Um, it needs to be a file name. Where is the texture? When you go into texture, I just named it I think metal. It needs to be a shader name in the Halo CE engine, so then it at least will display itself. It won't look good, but then if you get an actual like UV mapping and you adjust the textures, it'll look better. But for now, that's why mine don't look crazy. They're just a random texture applied without UV editing. But once you've done that, you should have an operational thing. Well, that's not true. You have to add in your code, right? But once you've done a little bit of scripting and coding, you should have an operational, right, set of code that should work. Just like it does here. So, but yeah, I hope you enjoyed this. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. I will attempt to help you out as best as I can because I'm enjoying this. It's interesting learning about how Halo has operated and worked for like a long time, and seeing the changes and development that it's had from like Halo CE all the way to Halo 3, where it's like the main difference, right, is that it's a lot simpler, where you don't have to code as much, or the engine is just better at that time. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video and have a great night or day or whatever time it is.